What is EMDR? Can I use it? Will it work for me? That is what we're talking about in this video. Stay tuned. Hey, I'm Leslie Huddart. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and spiritual guide, and I help empaths, healers, and sensitive people release the trauma trapped in their body without years more of therapy by really understanding the technical side of your subtle body, the way that your mind, body, and spirit actually fit together so that you can become the trained empath who is really soul aligned and knows how to harness the benefit of your superpowers and sensitivities without the overwhelm. In this video, we're going to talk about EMDR, and I get a lot of questions about EMDR because EMDR, which stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing, that's a little bit of a mouthful, that's probably why we call it EMDR. This is a modality that's very prevalent in the therapy world and thankfully has become mainstream. This is, in my professional view, on the edge of how far that Western mind-based, neck-up thought cognitive therapy has started to get down into more of the mind and body-based processing of trauma. There's other modalities like somatic experiencing and other things that I think are also good. So EMDR has become really widespread, and it's pretty easy to find a practitioner, and it's relatively straightforward for practitioners who are therapists and counselors and psychotherapists to get trained in EMDR. So good news, it's easy to find. Will it work for you? This is a great question. In this video, we're going to talk about the pros of EMDR and what I see as the cons. I am a licensed acupuncturist. I've been doing mind-body medicine with people for over a decade, and my specialty has really become the weird and tricky things that nobody could figure out. And usually, if you are someone that has experienced something like a trauma, whether it's trauma with a capital T or trauma with a little t, and you'll see my other video explaining that more, but essentially trauma with a big T is the thing that we all label as trauma. Some sort of accident or abuse or rape or psychological thing that you've been through. If you are a soldier coming back from a war zone, if you experienced or saw terrible human things happen, that's trauma with a big T. But what's also true is that we have trauma with a little t, and this could be anything that caused your body to believe that it wasn't safe. So that could be some offhanded comment that you heard your father make when you were 4. It could be the emotional vibe of your household growing up. Those are also little t traumas that happen. Even being embarrassed at school can be a little t trauma in the way it encodes in the body. So this is an important thing to think about when we talk about EMDR. What happens in EMDR is that a therapist will help you think about a traumatic memory that happened, usually trauma with a big T, and they'll do some sort of eye movement. That could be following a finger, it could be some sort of what they call an external stimulus. Sometimes it's actually just stimulating alternatively the left and right side of the body. So that could be tapping on one side of the body and then tapping on another side of the body rhythmically. Sometimes there is sound that's used. Sometimes you might use headphones that give you sound on one side and then on the other side. Sometimes you'll hold like a little device that kind of vibrates on one side and then vibrates on the other side. All of these things are creating an external stimulus to help your brain get over the stuck part of where it was processing a memory. Here's what we need to know about the general, very general sense of how the body encodes when a trauma happens. Let's just take big T trauma. An event happens and your body is in a heightened arousal state. Maybe you go into fight or flight. Maybe your life was even threatened. Maybe you felt like it was. The body's alarms go off in really strong ways. And so the working hypothesis of EMDR from the therapy world is that in some way, your body didn't quite get to complete that action and it got stuck, just like if you got a cut, but you didn't actually get to heal it. That unprocessed wound in the system of that activation gets a little stuck, and that causes a lot of suffering. It can cause flashbacks. It can cause a lot of difficulty in the system. So in a way, thinking about the trauma experience with your mind while also going through some sort of external stimulus helps the body on different levels actually complete that thought and get it out of the system. It's almost like cleaning out the cut so that the body can actually close the wound and finally finish the healing. And research has shown that for what we call single trauma, big T trauma that just was one incident that happened, that actually EMDR sessions can be very effective, usually over a period of time, research shows either 6 sessions, 12 sessions. There's great Googleable research out there on the effectiveness of EMDR. So if you are someone who has been through a big T trauma and you're having some PTSD type symptoms, post-traumatic stress disorder, and you're having flashbacks, you're having a lot of stress in your life, you know that that's a part of your picture, EMDR could be a really good help for you. Now, where I see EMDR fall short and how it's different from the more realm of body-based healing that is my specialty are a couple of things. Number one is that EMDR is coming from the therapy world where they don't really understand the subtle workings of the body, like the 4,000 to 6,000 tradition of acupuncture, year-old tradition. So when we understand the body at a deep level, there are natural medicine traditions that really understand how the subtleness of the mind and the body interact. These are traditions like Ayurveda from India and Chinese medicine from China. They understand how the emotions and the body are intricately linked together. And when you understand those things for thousands of years, you naturally come up with human treatments that really help both the mind and the body together. So acupuncture alone has been helpful for stress situations and things like that. One downside of EMDR is that it's still come from and generally employed in a tradition that is mostly used to approaching things from the level of the mind, where we try to understand things mentally, and now we're adding in a little bit of stimulation. So it's helpful, but it's not quite as deep. Another problem is that EMDR has to be done generally with a practitioner. So it's not teaching you how to actually free yourself from these issues or at home. And usually you'll be discouraged from actually thinking about those traumas on your own because it might reactivate you and you won't have the tools in the moment to actually safely process them and get them out. And you don't want to re-traumatize yourself or get stuck again. How that's different from what we do in subtle body work, which is teaching you really the language of how your body holds and encodes things and giving you the step-by-step process to actually find the source and let it out of the body. That's a big difference. Many of the folks that I work with have done EMDR and found that it was helpful, that it was more helpful than talk therapy, which I definitely agree with, and they felt like it only got them to a certain point. So that's something to consider. It might be a good place to start, but if you feel like it's taken a little bit of the edge off of the top, but you still got stuff to work on, you might want to head more in a subtle body direction. And I'll create some links down below. From time to time, we also do free training so that you can really start to get the basis of how do I actually release trauma trapped in my body, and you can check those out below. The last thing that I feel like is missing in the EMDR picture is this really getting to the source and being able to direct the process yourself. In EMDR, you have to kind of start with a terrible traumatic memory that happened, and then you're always stuck with, well, what comes up around that? And the truth is, the things that might be tripping you up in your everyday life, they might be connected to that, but they might be connected to something else. But unless that's something else source, unless in subtle body work you have the ability to trace things down to the actual source that your body is holding on to, which is always different than where the mind thinks it's sourced in, then you're going to be just rearranging and lightening things a little without ever actually getting to the source. This is like going out into the yard and chopping off the heads of all the dandelions thinking that they're not going to come back, and then you notice a couple weeks later they've all resprouted. You feel better for a period of time, and maybe if you pull out the dandelions, then it takes them maybe a season to come back, but ultimately if you haven't gotten to the deep root, you might notice that there's some aspects of the pattern that are coming back. Now, for many things, EMDR might nip it in the bud, and that's great. And so I like it as a modality, and I will recommend it to people. I think if you're going to do therapy and if you've had trauma, especially trauma with a big T, EMDR is a great place to start, and I recommend you look for a therapist near you. If you're ready for the next level, or you have a sense that it's more complicated than just your big T trauma, or maybe you haven't had major big T trauma, but you feel still like there's stuff stuck in your system, this subtle body approach of a deeply integrated mind, body, learn how to actually free it from your own body with support in an ongoing way might be for you. You are a soul with a body, and your healing makes a difference. The work you do on yourself is the wave that goes out that really changes the world. Keep going. If there's something I can support you with, check out the links below. We can connect, and I'm wishing you well. I'll see you in the next video.